Greetings and welcome. Now I know for some of y'all this might be a bit of a surprise. The giant head of me instead of our usual overlay for the Friday evening. Though Friday's been a bit of a minefield lately of miscellaneous games, hasn't it? Not to worry, Burning Wheel will return. We just couldn't make it happen tonight due to some folks having to be out of town for occasions both celebratory and not. So, yeah, so Austin and Andrew, Colin and Jess and I will all be back next week with Burning Wheel. But I didn't want to leave y'all hanging. I wanted to come and sit down for a little bit. Sit down by the fireside with y'all and have a little chat about the Roll20 tutorial. So, you might have seen, I retweeted it. This was several, I guess, probably a month or so ago now, maybe a little longer. We created a tutorial in Roll20, which is a custom kind of game that you can use to walk yourself through how a bunch of different features of the software work. This is like basic stuff like drawing, adding in maps, creating your campaign, basically, after you've built the game itself. So making things happen in Roll20. So I thought tonight what I would do, or today or this morning or whenever you're watching, would be sit down and go through that tutorial. Because I know that, you know, for some people, digging in and just doing the work themselves is the best way to learn. But for others, having a sort of step-by-step guide can be really helpful. So I'm going to kind of demo the tutorial for you. We're going to walk through it together. And as we go, if you have questions about the tutorial particularly or about GMing and Roll20 in general, feel free to let me know. Just throw me an ask. If you're watching this on YouTube, of course, you can't do that live, but you can comment or you can hit me up on Twitter if you have questions as well if you're watching this after the fact. So, should we get to it? This should take, I don't know, I gave us 2 hours to like give us, you know, lots of room to talk about this stuff, but it may not take that long. We'll see. It'll take as long as it takes, right? And yeah, let's get into it. So, grab my Roll20 screen here. Boop. So this is, as you probably know, Roll20. This is the first screen that you see when you first log in. So you got my little login up here. 643 hours played so far in Roll20. That is something else. So the tutorial basically acts as its own game. You can find it if you want to do it yourself above your recent games. Up in games here, so you can see my game, start new game, all this information. There's the tutorial there. We've also got a little splash for it right there. If you ever want to see behind the scenes, this is what my splash screen for Mirror Shades and Swansong and OSA look like. Some very old fan art for Swansong. But we're going to go up and we're going to go to games. We're going to hit up the tutorial. So the tutorial basically loads up a brand new game and walks you through step by step what we're going to learn. So we're going to look at the drawing tools. We're going to talk a little bit about the art library, about tokens and measurement. We'll go over communication and chat, the dice GUI, so all kinds of stuff. You can see it all over here. And a lot of this, if not all of it, has been used in some fashion or another in either Old School Adventures, Burning Wheel, or in any of the other sort of one-off games like Dungeon World or Mouse Guard. So if you've seen me using a cool trick in one of those, you want to see how it works, this is going to be the place you can find that out. Basically when we get started, the system gives us some little tooltips down here. So it's going to welcome us to the system. We're going to go over the virtual tabletop, basic tools available to you in your Roll20 account. Now these tools are available to everybody that has the free account. We're not going to jump to anything else, though thank you for the option. I'm just going to walk through. So when you create a game, and this is ostensibly for game masters, this tutorial, but a lot of the tools, if you're given the ability to use them by the GM, like the drawing tool, if for example you wanted to turn a tree into some kind of tree into king by throwing a crown on him in the picture, you can do that if the GM gives you control over the drawing tools, which is, you know, definitely a thing that we have seen before. So yeah, they can see and control only what you decide to show them. So virtual tabletop is this area. By default, it's a white grid-lined area that makes up most of the application. It's the table, basically, that we play on. By default, they can see but not control everything on the tabletop. We don't switch back and forth between edit and play mode. Depending on your latency, there may be a bit of a delay between, you know, the GM placing a token and the GM moving the token, you know, having a character turned over to you and your ability to access their sheet. That just depends on your connection to the servers and to the internet in general. But for the most part, everything is done in as close to real time as we can manage for the internet. And you can use this virtual tabletop to play basically any tabletop game. You know, it's obviously easier for certain games and more tricky for others. You have to do a little bit more work. But you can play just about any tabletop game using Roll20. So we're going to use my favorite tool, he said sarcastically, because he can't draw for a damn. We're going to be using the drawing tool. So we're going to take a look at the freehand tool. The freehand tool, most often used to draw dinosaurs, swear words, and penises. But not really. It's usually used for drawing maps and objects that are not strictly polygonal. So we select the freehand drawing tool. You can see it here. We can click anywhere to add a drawing. Add one now. Yeah. So secondary pop-up that allows me to change the width and fill color of my drawings. Now, here's the thing. Here's some trivia that I didn't realize until very recently. You might have seen me make this realization. You can't see it down here. Here, let me move my camera. Oh, the overlay is covering me. Okay. So in the bottom corner, boop, there we go. You can see right next to my name, I've got a color here. That color is the default that this will always be when I go to draw. Which is why, if you've been watching Old School Adventures, I accidentally draw a lot of dungeon walls in pink, because that's my default color for OSA. So you can change your default color by clicking that box, picking another one, and then when you create a line, it'll give you your default up there. So I've changed it to black. So secondary pop-up will allow me changing the width and the color, which we can now see. I'll change it to extra large. See, much bigger then. The line color, and again, let me move myself out of the way. Oh yeah, here we go. I got ahead of myself. It defaults to your player color right here. You can change it. Boop. Make yourself red. This also will be the color of your dice when you go to engage the die roller. So it allows you to draw shapes of any size and color. And then when you get into using the shape tool, you can see it defaults to a rectangle, and then we can use Shift and Alt to draw different things. So if you're drawing dungeons, the Shift key is useful because it snaps to grid. So you can be like, it's a 10-foot by whatever room, right? It's kind of crappy room. So you can draw explicitly connected shapes, or you can draw disconnected shapes, and you can become as cubist as you like. Or if you hold Alt, you're going to get circles, so you can draw weird zones all over your map. So shapes, fully featured shapes are fine. So here's a question. Can you change the width of the shape? Yes. So once you've already placed the shape, that's a good question, Alex. So once you've already placed the shape, if you realize you've put it in the wrong line width, you can do what I'm doing here and change it, because I definitely have done that before too. Let me clear some of this stuff out of our way. My overzealous circle drawing. Okay, so if we use the polygon or line tool, it's going to allow us to draw lines by connecting angles, vertices, and joints on the table. So left-clicking starts the polygon. Each additional click places it somewhere new. This is really useful for those rooms that are not explicitly 10 foot by 10 foot. You can right-click, hit escape, or click very close to the starting point to finish it. So if you do that, boop, now it's done. Or you can say, this guy goes over here, right-click. Now we have a separate polygon that goes up there. This is a tool that we can use for drawing. This is, like I said, expressly good for drawing hallways and rooms, because then we can have an open archway that leads into the room. So, you know, I could say the room is this far. And again, you can see that if I hold shift, it's not letting me draw all like sort of willy-nilly. It's letting me attach only to corners. So this is how I can say create a map that looks basically exactly like the dungeon that I'm basing it off of. Though if I do this, this is a terrible dungeon. Do not ever go in this dungeon. It's horrible. You will get messed up. Yeah, so we can create our own custom polygon that way. Like so. Control Z will undo each consecutive click, basically, that you do. So you can see, oh, that line, oh, sorry, that actually goes to this corner, then here, no, here. So you don't have to redraw the whole line, which is useful. Lots of keyboard shortcuts in Roll20 that I think a lot of people don't necessarily know about. I certainly know I had to learn a lot of them as I went through. So yeah, so we can let's add another polygon to continue with our. There we go. So I can change the fill color using the secondary one. Now, if you're not a Photoshop user, you might not recognize that this is the code for transparent. But this way, now I can make weirdly filled polygons. Look at them. Look how strange it is. And now it's the 80s. All right, so you can create all kinds of unusual polygons that way. Again, more useful if you're drawing a dungeon with a fill area, or the inverse if you want to create a black space or dark space around a particular area. You can use that to do it. A tool that I use a lot is the text tool. Fairly self-explanatory, right? It's used for adding notes or messages. You can change the color and one of a handful of fonts and the size of the text. So I could say, is a great GM, because I totally am. And then when you click elsewhere, it resizes it. And like everything else, holding shift will allow you to place it at the top of, so you can see it clicks to a vertex like that. You can spin it around, so you can label objects within a map. You can also change the color. Once it's been placed, you can change the size. Once it's been placed, basically any object that's you've drawn or used the drawing tool to manage, you can change its size, color, fill, all of that kind of after the fact once it's been placed. Yeah, persistent for everyone once you've placed them. Select and move lets you move and alter them. So let's draw a box and I'll show you. Here, I'll show you how that works. You've seen me do this, I think, before. You know, rotation tool, and then with drawings you can resize them. I find this particularly useful if you're drawing a large-scale map, copying the vertexes you've drawn, copying the lines you've drawn, pasting them into another area, and then resizing them from there. Let's see. Can you change the anchor point? You mean for text? Text by default top left corner of the square. You can drag to select as well, or hold shift to keep adding objects to your selected area. So if you have several blocky objects, you want to collect all of them or only some of them, you can hold shift to decide which you want to grab. And if you want to only select some drawings, you can hold Alt, which will allow you to click. So like, for example, let's throw another drawing down here. Let's see. Try manipulating drawings now. Oh, I shouldn't have deleted them all. Let's see if I can get another drawing back on here. Yeah, no, it's not going to let me. Okay, hold on. We're going to jump back to the drawing tools. I need to draw something. Here we go. I'm breaking the tutorial. There we go. Okay, so I can clear and continue. There we go. Okay, so drawing, again, like, depending on whether you're drawing on top of a map, like I do in OSA, or if you're drawing like a freehand map, You can do a lot with the objects. It's just a question of getting familiar with the tools. You can group objects together, like I mentioned, but you can't change necessarily like the point that they're anchored at. Now, if you're using built-in objects of art, if you aren't drawing your map, you're not drawing each individual character using the draw tool. You want something a little more complex than this to represent your fighter. Though it's a pretty badass fighter, I must say. Oh, he's so mad. So you can see if I right-click here, just to answer your question about grouping, so you can group. Now this is all one object, so I can minify my fighter. Look how tiny he is. And I can add more of him, and he just becomes one object rather than a collection of lines. So that's how the grouping tool works. But if you want something more complex than that, you're going to start having to use tokens. So the art library, which is the second tab up on the right, is where you can grab these items, these objects. To answer your question, Alex, freehand drawing and shapes are objects. Yes, you can't. There's no eraser tool in Roll20. You can't draw out part of an object. So if I freehand a line, consummate V's, beefy arm back here. Anyway, if I draw out a line, I can't. There's no erase tool, so I would have to reshape the line, move it around, or just draw it completely as a separate object. So depending on what you're doing, that can be useful or not. So anyway, when you click up here, you're going to get the keyword search. So by default, it's going to search through anything you've uploaded, popular RPG forums, sites on the web, and the Roll20 marketplace. Now, if you're streaming, just be aware that not all art is Creative Commons. So you can't just use whatever you want on your stream necessarily. There is a chance that someone might be like, hey, that's my drawing that I did. But if you're just playing with your friends, you can do whatever you want. You can search for whatever tokens you like and you can use them. We're just pulling image search basically from a bunch of different places. You can also buy premium assets. There are folks who sell their art on Roll20 as options for backgrounds, maps, that kind of thing. So take a look through the art library. There's all kinds of cool stuff. Let's type in archer. Looking for a sterling archer. So you can see here from the web, it's pulling some archer token options for us. We can see some archer tagged items that I've already got in my list. So recognize like Jovial Druid by Thomas Smith is tagged as archer because the person who made this, Thomas Smith, is good with tagging their art. So check it out. Bam, there's my little elf. Alright, so we're going to click the star next to an item to add it to my library. Let's find a cool one that I might like to use again. Let's add, it's not an archer. These are ninja. So like any Google image search, you're going to get less and less results as you go. Usually the good stuff's at the top. But hey, look, this is cool, an archery target. I might use that for a scene later. I'm going to click the star, and that adds it to my library. I did it. So now items in the library appear at the top, which is what you can see here. So Affluent Halfling, Jovial Druid, Serious Archer, all of these are up at the top. So once you've found or purchased an asset, you can just drag it like we did, and then manipulate it like an object, as you would expect. And tokens, by default, again, they click to the grid. Right? You can see them, they'll occupy the grid. Or if you want to, you can hold Alt, and you can move them around to fit whatever dimensions. It's extremely flat. Elven Pancake can be wherever we need them to be. So easy once it's there. You can drag and drop external stuff straight from your tabletop onto the app. So let me see here. Let me go over to my tabletop and I'll grab, I've got a cool map I can dump on here that maybe you haven't seen before. Yeah, here you go. I got a Caves of Chaos map. So you drop that in and you can see it hanging out here, and then boom, there's my map. So you can drag any image onto the tabletop from my computer, and now I got a map. Cool, right? It's kind of a neat map. Check it out. It shows all kinds of like specific details about stuff. I'm gonna delete that. That's it. It's easy stuff. So you can drag it from here onto the tabletop or from your computer, and it adds it on, and we can do it. So lines we drew earlier, let's draw some more lines. So the game has, look, there's a affluent halfling in a very short hallway. They're not as rigidly attached. Items on the VTT from here are considered tokens. Now you'll notice, like when I click on my drawing, it's just a drawing, right? It's just a line, and all I can do is squiggle it around. But with this character, you can see I got little bubbles up top. I got a little option here. I can add some additional stuff. So let's look at what that does. Obviously, we can resize the token. So this is like an ogre-sized halfling. We can also bring up the 3 bubbles. So now you can customize them, or you can just put in numbers. You can also change the colors if you want to. So in OSA, I use these to track hit points. I use it to track armor class. And then I have a third option if I needed one. I could track like morale, for example, there. So these are both numbers that can go up and down. You can make measurements of them. They're also a place where you can track static numbers that the GM or the players need to refer to, right? So if I look at this, if I'm like AC, the middle one is AC, I generally will be able to not have to ask the players, like, what's your armor class again? So we did that. So we added a number. Let's try updating your bubble. I did update it. There we go. You can also apply math, and this is a thing that I only learned when I did Old School Adventures. If you've got hit points here, I can say instead of putting 8, instead of doing the math and then putting it in, I can put -2 or -3 or -5 or whatever, and it reflects damage. If they get 5 temporary hit points on top, I can go like that. The icon menu, this one's good too, for tracking options like, oh, this halfling is slowed, this halfling is under the effects of poison, this halfling has a bad back. Reselecting it removes it. So you can pile on as many as you like here, but generally, you know, you're going to have them do overflow as they go past the borders of the character. So let's let's go and remove those. Boop. Okay. Now the token settings menu, which is the gear, you can access that by clicking it, or you can double click the token. And again, OSA as an option. You can change some fairly specific stuff here, both around visibility and around what people are able to see. So in this character, let me bring it up. You can change. Someone was asking like what bubbles people can see. Now you can, for these, you'll show basically the players won't be able to see these at all unless it's their character. But if you want to, you can make them a bar and allow the players to see that. So if, for example, I want hit points to be visible, right? So we have 10 hit points, but I want to keep AC and morale hidden. I can change these by going to advanced, and I can decide whether the players see or can edit the various options on this character. So this way, right now, all players can mess around with this character, but they can't see the things they're able to edit. They need both to be able to manage it. So if we want them to be able to see this giant halfling, and we want to be able to see the nameplate in the bar, we can change that in the character options. Let me get rid of some of these tokens so we have a clear space. So name, the various bars, and then if you're using a game that uses torchlight, for example, you can add that in. So I could say this sheds 30 feet of orange light and 10 feet of red light. Now you can see. So this is useful for creating obviously like torch auras, but also for things like damage aura, how far out those go, and that kind of thing. So really useful. So you can say like anyone who gets within 10 feet of the demon has to make a saving throw or die. Anyone who gets within 30 feet takes fire damage every round. You can also, if you want to indicate that a character is, say, poisoned, for example, you can give them a tint. So now this is a poison halfling with a giant flame aura. Paladin auras, yeah, that's a good point. Also really useful for that. Now, if you attach this token to a particular character, hold on, I'm going to catch up here. Let's get back caught up with the tutorial. Yep, thanks tutorial. I got ahead of you. I'm so sorry. Alright, add a status icon. I will. Alright, access this by clicking the icon or double clicking the token. There we go. So, by default, players don't have any control, but you can change that by setting controlled by up here. So this is how we let, in OSA, we let the two characters basically like hang out as one player's unit. So, you know, this is where like Chunk was temporarily taken over by Andrew while Andrew played his other character. You can have more than one character. So the token can be assigned to represent a specific character if you have character sheets set up. So this is what the token menu looks like. You name the token, which we did. You can update the field. Giant halfling. Fancy pants. Okay. You can select which players. If a player controls it and the token's been set to represent that character, the player automatically gains control. So this way you don't have to make new tokens for everyone. You can set maximums, which we did. You can do that manually, or if they're attached to a character, you can pick what they're attached to on the sheet. So the player, when they update it, the character automatically is updated. Basically, it just makes them representations of the same thing. If you put in a maximum, it will display the bar. You can leave it blank if the bar does not display. We can do our auras, which we just saw. And then auras default to circular, but you can change them to be square auras. So adding a value. Easy enough. And when you save it, there we go. I don't know what game uses square auras, but I guess if you want like very specifically what squares are affected, that's a thing that you can do. All right. So that's tokens. Tokens are super, super useful in games that care about tokens. Dungeons & Dragons, for example, incredibly useful to have tokens. If you watch the West Marches, then you you'll be able to see a big jump between when we played without the tokens and when we started playing with them. Things became a lot more tactical when we started using tokens. The measure tool is also one that I find incredibly useful for dungeon crawl games, but also for managing any kind of ranges for equipment or weapons. So measurement tool allows you to measure distances. Check it out. This is how far any given thing is. It'll measure center to center by default. See that? So it's 10 feet from the center of this square to the center of that one. Same units of measurement on the page, and we'll talk about setting up pages later. So you can click and drag. This will tell you. With the grid turned on, it rigidly snaps. So you can see here, like that's how that works. And it measures just like one square to one square. It doesn't care that the actual distance between these two is smaller than those. It treats them all as if they're the same distance from each other. Again, you can change that. We'll talk about it when we get to diagonals on the page level. You can also bypass all that and just say, how far is this line? Right? Or how far from here to there directly? So that's holding Alt. We'll do that for you. Similar to the measurement, you can check the distance of how far a token has been moved. So while you're moving a token with the select tool, you can press the spacebar key to check to see how far you've moved. So let's move it over here. See? So that'll let us say, okay, I can move there. That was 10 feet. Pressing it after you place it, it'll show you how far it moved. This is a cool feature. I didn't know about this one until very recently. I am going to be using this one a lot in OSA probably. So like, oh, okay, this guy can move. I'll move him 20 feet, but first I'm going to move him 10 feet. Okay, he came from there. Now I'm going to move him here. Okay, there's my 20 feet. Right? So you can measure specific directions that you head. everyone can use the measure tool and the token for a few seconds after you measure. And you can all measure together. So this way, and again, you can see like this is red because my indicator is red, so that everyone knows this is Adam's measuring tool. We're going to talk a little bit about layers. Layers are incredibly useful for mapping and for being a GM and being sneaky and hiding things. So check this out. The token layer is the top layer. Think of it as striations. Token layer, map layer, GM layer, right? Am I missing a layer? We'll talk about it in a second. So yeah, for this layer, there's the dynamic lighting layer, but that's only a premium feature, so I'm not going to talk about it right now. There are tutorials for that, though not as detailed as this one yet. Dynamic lighting is how we do blocked aura type light. It's a little more complex than I'm really even into right now, and you know, we'll implement it probably in the future for OSA particularly. But for right now, I want to keep things at an unpaid level, so you can see them there. So that's a useful thing that you can see there. So the map layer is what's underneath the tokens. Players can see them but not interact with them, because it's the map and the players can't erase that stuff. So drawings and tokens that are on the token layer, you can kind of see through them, and you can't select them. So this way, if I'm drawing you know, some crappy cave walls, I don't accidentally intersect with my token in a way that's harmful to that token. So I can say, okay, I'm gonna nudge this a little closer. There we go. There's my drawing. You know, you can add a background image. So we've seen this before. So we can say, I don't know, let's just this dungeon, and you can move and resize it. But we're still on the we can still move it onto the different layers from here. So if I'm on the map layer, by default, it'll place it on the map. And now I can make a size of it there. So move and resize it. Right-clicking on it allows you to set it as a drawing, flip and reorder it, and mess around with it that way. So you can see here, I can move it to front or back. I can move it specifically to a layer if I want to. So now it's on the token layer. And I can't get at it. So let's jump back to my token layer. Or I can move it to the GM layer. Well, now no one can see it. And this is how we've been doing the maps in Old School Adventures, right? Where I've said, okay, you've opened the door and you can see a short hallway. The players can't see the map I'm drawing over, but they can see the lines that I'm drawing atop it, which is what makes it so they can see the map. So this is the GM layer. It moves everything down there, and you can place literally anything here, and the players will not be able to see it. Not just maps, but tokens, that kind of thing. And what's cool about it is that we can place monsters. So if I want to be like, let's grab some orcs, and let's say there are a bunch of orcs hiding around the corner. We can place them, and the players won't get to see them until I right-click them and I move them to either the map or token layer. Now the players can see them, and they have reasons to be scared. This is really useful for setting traps on a map, setting up anything the players can't see, secret doors, that kind of thing. So switching back to the object layer pretty much just locks what you've been working on and allows you to move your tokens around like we've been doing here. What's really cool about this is that what on a traditional tabletop you would need several sheets to do, you can layer and kind of work on the same stuff together. So you can write your notes on the same piece of paper the players are playing on, and you can adjust when they appear and when they go away. So you can manage what the players are up to, what they can see while you're working. Really useful tool that a lot of people just kind of like pass over is pinging locations. So at a tabletop, I can say, I would like to go to this door and point at the door, but with a computer, I point at my screen. Okay, which orc am I touching? I'm touching the orc. you can just ping. So you just click and hold. The ping in your color will appear. Right? This orc. I killed that one. Circular ping appears, matches your player color. GM can hold shift, and when they ping, it will pull the map to that location. I also grabbed my little token. That's cool, hey? So if you want to highlight a token or drawing to be able to see it a little better, if you're zoomed way out and you're like, okay, I see there's some orcs. Wait, is this an orc or a troll? You can hit Z. It's going to show you a cool box. You can also hold Shift Z to reveal something to a player, so you can do the same. Check it out, guys. You see an orc. This is one I want to use more when I GM, especially because I want to highlight some of this cool art. So I can be like, players, you encounter an orc. She's super cool. So fun little feature, one that you can use to highlight specific stuff for your players. So now there is some integrated voice and video options for communication in Roll20. This is like the hands down the question most often asked for me about, like, well, I want to stream. You know, what do you use? You use Skype? You use Zoom? You use what? For streaming, we use a dedicated service because they're one tool built for that one thing, and we want to have the highest possible fidelity that we can get for our players and for the audience. But you can use the built-in video and voice by going to the menu here and, as a GM, enabling it. When you play, it'll automatically turn on. It'll prompt for you to attach your webcam and your microphone, of course, last for permission, and then you can disable it in the My Settings tab, which we'll talk about more later. It'll replace this little icon, which you can't see because I'm in your way. It'll replace this with a picture of the person if it's operative, so you can see it there. There's my face. Cool. So you can also attach the game directly to Google Hangouts. There's a, outside of the virtual tabletop, on the one we saw before, you know where it was like join game? On the page there's a start in Hangouts. So there's a Hangouts plugin for Roll20 if you prefer using that. I know a lot of people do. For streaming, we don't use Google Hangouts because it defaults to showing the entire party, the person who's talking, so you don't get an equal distribution of everyone's faces. But Google Hangouts, totally an option. You can use it from there. It's basically built in. The text tab over here, text chat tab, has lots of uses. You can type in it. It'll show you the information there. It's persistent, so it doesn't disappear. It's always available through the chat archive. We often clear the chat before we'll start playing so that we get just this session, but it'll appear here. You can also go to the archive and grab everything that's ever been said or rolled. This is really great for statistics, so if you're like, man, why do I keep missing? And you go back and you're like, oh, actually I don't. I only miss, like, you know, twice a session. It just feels like it. So a normal game would show you a join link, but this isn't a, it's not a normal game. It's a tutorial game, so you can't join it. I mean, you can join it yourself, but it's not a real game. You'll see a link there. You can click and copy paste that to anybody. When they click it, they can get an invitation page and be able to join in. If you kick somebody out of a game, you'll be able to see that, and the link will change. So if you have some toxic troll in your group, like an internet troll, not a Dungeons and Dragons troll. Maybe you got Dungeons and Dragons trolls in your group. Anyway, you want to kick somebody out, it'll change that link automatically. You don't have to worry about them just going back and clicking back in. You can do other stuff through the chat box. So you can speak out of character by default, right? But you can also speak in character, you can speak as characters, and you can emote. So, like... So the little orange box shows an emote. It's a private message or it shows to everybody, and it's not a private message, but you can also create private messages. To do that, you can type /W and then name, and it will tell you if you can find the person. It'll show you their message. For me, a lot of the time, like I don't use a lot of these because we have voice chat, but if I needed to send something to someone specifically, I could do it through here. If you're using just text chat for your game, this is a great place for it. And you can start to do things that will fill in that kind of gap. Like if you're playing with people who don't have a webcam, don't have a microphone, you can still do text chat and you can emote as your character. If you're the GM, you can switch the different characters here, and it will allow you to sort of play as them in the ongoing chat of the game. You can resize this chat too if you want more room for it. If your game is text heavy, or you can cram it up in the side. As you need. Cool. For multi-word names, you just you put them in quotes. If you need to whisper the GM, you can do that /W space GM. The GM's name is always GM. So yeah. So if you're the GM and you need to change, sorry, someone mentioned this is covered by the overlay. If you need to change the character you're playing as, it's down at the bottom here. So I'm Skinny Ghost, the GM, but you can change that if you like. Cool. So once you start typing, there is actually an autocomplete. Again, you won't see it. There you go. So you won't see it with this as easily because there's only one of me, but you can see it starts to fill in Skinny Ghost. So you can whisper directly to me or your GM or whoever the player is. It's the same name that appears over here on their information. So you can always see who they are, so you can whisper at them. Whispering is good for, as was pointed out, Jor Fizban mentioned, whispers are good for if you're speaking a different language than another character. So you can be like, I tell the elf, get bent, but in elf language. Right, so now the GM who's role-playing as the elf can understand that, and they can reply. The elf becomes outraged and strikes you with his long sword, etc. So, autocomplete. That'll happen if you have players in your game. When a new player joins the game, they're going to be added to the list, and the GM, or the game will do that. It'll autofill as they get added. So, hello, GM. You can talk out of character using the chat box, so /O is, well, you'll see. This is out of character. So it's blue. And the GMs also get exclusive commands like describe as and EM as. So a description. The walls are slimy. Slimy? I can say as donuts, so I am so mad right now. And then you can also emote as I'm so hungry. He's so mad because he's so hungry. I don't know why you'd use emote as a word, so I guess like this. I am donuts is angry. Hangry donuts. So you can see all these different types of communication available to you in the chat box. And again, primarily to support players who want to either supplement their voice and audio chat or add in primary voice or primary text chat to the game. You can see a description not having been spoken. You can have speak or emote as a character. And use basic markdown syntax, so you can do these slimy walls smell like donuts. So you can italicize. You can link or image if you don't want to drag something in. It's a pretty fully featured text chat. Give it a try. Oh, look at that. I love Roll20. Self-serving tutorial. Alright, let's talk about role-playing. Real, actual, true role-playing. Rolling dice and beating the GM at stuff. To roll a die, you type /R, then the type of a die you want to roll, and how many of them. I would like to roll one 20-sided die, and then the modifier of that die. I'm going to roll a d20. I'm going to add 5. There we go. So it shows it right down here. I got an 11. There's my 11. I'm really proud of it. I added 5 to it, and I got a 16. Now, if you want to be a super sneaky GM, you can roll in secret. So I can do that same roll by typing /GM roll. Again, if you've watched Old School Adventures, I check for encounters, and I roll in the encounter table using this. So GM roll, 1d20 plus 5. Now, because it's in yellow, you can see it's secret. So the GM roll, much better, but now that I've dragged it, everybody can see it. It also defaults to my color if I drag it to the table. This is useful for games like Dogs in the Vineyard that use like a poker system. You roll a bunch of dice, and then once they're down there, you can, let's see, like 2d8, 2d4, 1d6. Oh, I gotta roll them separately, sorry. Let's add them together here. So it'll roll all my dice, and I can drag them individually. So I've got a 4, I've got a 7, I've got a 3 and a 1, and I've got a 5. And now I can use these to push or call or whatever my role-playing game requires of me. I now have them as objects on the table to manipulate, as if I'd rolled them and they had landed as is. They're basically just tokens. So, cool. I actually really like that feature. It's just nice to be able to like pull them in and place them. You can do that in secret or in public, depending on how you roll. So for a more compact representation, you can do inline die rolling. So other type of stuff like emotes. So for example, well, I'll show you. We'll do an example. So using square brackets, you can. Oops. Thanks, Chrome. Getting all excited. You can use square brackets to create inline options. So here's my attack. It's an attack roll. Yes! Fucking sweet. I crit. I totally crit. So I rolled a 20. I added a 5. And you can see the tooltip shows me what that meant. So it shows me the roll. If I got a 20, if you get the highest number on the die, it turns green. If you get the worst number, it turns red. I'm rad. I got that 25. It doesn't show the individual dice. It just shows the finalized result. Now, if you want to click around a little instead of typing, you can click over here in the dice rolling GUI. It's this little thing. Looks like a die. Surprising no one. You can perform basic rolls. So just click a die. Bam. Click a die. Click a die. And it'll roll, and it'll show you what you rolled there. You can create an advanced roll by changing the number of dice and clicking. So I got my results here. And then it shows you the last 10 rolls, so you can just click on them. So if you have to roll, you know, the same type of roll a lot, that's available for you in that area. Yeah. So 3D dice, which I really like because they're fun, are enabled. And now we can show them. They're fun. If your computer struggles, if you're using like a laptop or your connection isn't great, you can turn them off if they get in your way. But basically it creates a bunch of pretend dice for you to roll. So when I click to roll this d6, it's now giving me the option to click and drag. And then I can actually throw my die, and it'll sit on the table until we click it to get rid of it. You can also, if you want, have it automatically roll, which I don't think is as fun. Right, so he just throws them on the table. But if you disable automatically roll 3D dice and you click, it'll prompt you to throw it at them yourself after you do that. I like this feature because I can go like this and I can throw about a million d6s on the table. You ready? Everybody ready? Here they come. There's like a maximum number of objects I think that it'll throw at once for you, but the maximum number of dice is not. No, that's not a great roll. Anyway, actually, it's like an exactly even roll. What, 300's the best you can get on 50? I don't know. Whatever, math. I'm terrible at it. The point is, 3D dice. You can have them and throw them on the table. You can see, you'll have to check the wiki for the specific game you're playing, but you can see here that with optional settings you can have exploding dice, compounded or regular, and then you can do whether target number is greater than or less than with a specific number. So like if we're playing Burning Wheel, we could say I'm going to roll 5d6. I can set it as exploding, and then I can say target number is greater than 3. And when I roll, I'll be able to... Oh, sorry, I didn't do that right. When I roll, I'll be able to place the numbers there. But again, like I said, check the dice reference. It'll walk you through how to do those, specifically for a bunch of different games. Now, if you're a GM, you're going to need to set up pages. So you remember I said before that we have these kind of workspaces, these static like lines basically with the token layer, the GM layer, the map layer wedged in between them. Now you're not going to have just one of those. You're going to have a bunch of different desks that you're working on. So to modify those, you can come up here to the little blue tab, drop it down, and now you can create pages. So each one of these is its own tabletop. Some of them are maybe going to be world maps. Some of them are going to be like close-up maps. Some of them are going to be just art that you want to display on downtime. So you can do all of that by clicking up here, and you can create and manage your pages. So once you have pages, you can split the party. Okay, so here's a thing that I haven't had an opportunity to use, but watch, we'll create a new page. So this is level 1. And we've got level 2 of the dungeon over here. So we can say, I should have entered that one. So this one's level 1. So now, when Hillary and Dave fall through the pit trap into the second level of the dungeon, I can keep Andrew and John on the first level, and then I can drag and drop the other players onto their own area. So it's like, uh-oh, Adam, you're stuck on level 2 now. Everybody else, you're on level 1. So you can go back and forth between the two. You can click and drag to move them as you need, or put them back in the party by clicking players, which is actually kind of cool, right? Because that happens, right? People get separated. You don't want them to get stuck looking at nothing. I also use these, if you watch the Apocalypse World game, I use these as separate different handouts. So I could say, okay, so I'm looking at this front while the players are looking at the map, or if I'm GMing, I've got my 3 different fronts in different areas, and I can jump back and forth between them. So you add new pages just like I did before. Click to add a new page. You can rename it. Easy as pie. If you hover over the player that has the bookmark, you can access the page settings. So, I mean, we can set the pages for all of these, but let's take a look at our main map. And people who are asking about changing dimensions, Euclidean diagonals, that kind of stuff, this is where you do it. So by default, a page is 25 units by 25 units. A unit is 70 pixels. I mean, that's how it goes. That's what it's built on. We've had several long conversations where I've been teasing Nolan and the team about, like, why 70? Why do it like that? Why not change it to 1? There's a reason. I can't remember what it is. All I do now is just remember that 25 units, or 1 unit is 70 pixels. So you multiply this by 70 to get how many pixels a screen is. What I'll often do is do that math before I import a map, so I can make a page size about the same size. So you can change that here. If you're just drawing, it doesn't really matter the exact size. You can just keep making it as big as you want. You can zoom in and out. So we can see, this is my nice like long page. Let's say I need to make it taller. I can just go back into the toolbar, and I can say, let's make it 50 by 70. That drops it down. So you can just keep adding these, so it'll add out from the edges as you go. We can also change the scale. So this is where folks were asking before. It defaults to 5 feet, but if you want to do like 10-foot squares, you can. You can also say each unit is 1 mile, kilometer, or meter, kilometer, mile, inch, centimeter, unit, hex, or just square. I like square for measuring other non-measurable things. Like if you watch the Dungeon World episode, I measured our world map in one hex because it wasn't a specific distance. It was just how many hexes, and each hex cost a ration if you made a dangerous journey, or a perilous journey. So you can change these. If you're playing a sci-fi game, chances are pretty good you're doing meters. Shadowrun's in meters. You can change the background, which I often do because white filling your screen is kind of intense. So you can change it to whatever color is your preference on the background picker here. Or you can punch in a hex code. Let's make a nice lavender background. Yeah, that's nice. And then you can turn on or off your grid. If the grid is enabled, you can say how big it is. So we can just do like half a unit or 0.1 of a unit. You can select your diagonals. So do you use D&D 4E diagonals? Do you use Pathfinder 3E or 3.5E compatible? Do you use Euclidean diagonals or Manhattan diagonals? That's right. Get your math on. So this will change how you measure from the middle of a square to the middle of a square and how far it is. So for example, like let's look at one. So these are tiny. Give me my full size ones back. There we go. Okay, so for example, that's 2 meters, right? This is also 2 meters. That's not true, necessarily. So let's take a look. If we wanted to change it to be Pathfinder compatible, now that's 3 meters. 4, 6, 7, 9. So if you've played Pathfinder, you know how that works, right? So you can go in a straight line as normal by counting, but if you want to go diagonally, it costs 1 and then 2. 1, 3, 4, 6. Just like that. You can also set for more mathematical, so Euclidean. So it says this is 1, that's 1.4, that's 2.8, that's 4.2. Or you can use the Manhattan measurements, which is to say 2, 4, 6, like that. So it's 1 over 1 down, 1 over 1 down, like so. Math. You can decide if it's square or one of the 2 types of hex, vertical hexes. So you can see with the line up and down. Or you can set side-to-side hexes, like so, the line horizontal. And then you can choose what color the grid is. So if you want to make your your star map using hexes, you can do that, and then you can also have square mapping for other like dungeons, for example. And then you can also show labels. So this is showing you what hex each one is. So combining this and the token system, you can create all kinds of really cool like world maps with just placing certain areas. So you could say like, let's draw a lake and then add that in, and then you can place a castle token, that kind of thing. So there's a big green object, and now I want a red square thing, and then you'll be able to use it, and you can see how much space it takes up, and you can resize it and do all the cool things you would do. And then once you want to set it to the map, you can just right click it, bump it to the map layer, and then you can place tokens on top of it. So cool way to start building world maps and dungeon maps and various types of maps that you might need. Cool, so you can do that here. You can change the opacity if you want 100% or 0%, like how easy is it to see those? And then finally, you can enable things like GM opacity and fog of war. And that's for these specific pages. So we did all the grid stuff. And then at the bottom, you can archive or delete the page. Archiving the page will remove it from the player view, remove it from your view, but you'll be able to get at it later if you need to. Deleting it toasts it completely. Above that, we can see, we'll talk a little bit more about fog of war. So with the fog of war enabled, the map is semi-opaque, right? Now you can set it, for the players, this is all black. They can't see it at all. if you want to clear the fog of war, you can click and drag to clear areas. So now the players can see this. You can hold Alt to reset it. And then there's different types of reveal that you can do. So polygonal reveal, like, oh, okay, you can see that area. Oh, look, an area that you can see. Cool, you've cast the weirdest light spell in the history of light spells. So this is a way for you to create a world map that expands with the players. Now, this is what ties into the dynamic lighting that we were talking about before, where you can make an object that sheds dynamic light, but that's a bit outside the scope of the tutorial for right now. Yeah, so maps. They're very cool. I'm a big maps nerd. I love maps in role-playing games. It's one of my favorite things to play around with. So it's fun learning all these tools in Roll20 to manage those maps. Let's pop over and take a look at the journal, shall we? So in the journal tab, we can create things like handouts and characters. When I click add, it's going to ask me what do I want to create. I'm going to create a handout. So from here, now they're called handouts because they would be like the kinds of things you'd print on your printer at home and then physically give to a player, whether they are like rules handouts, like I often do, or they're like special maps or art that you want to be like, you see this thing right here. You can see it right here. Yeah, so you can use these just by renaming the handout. So we could say like Assassin's Contract. You can say who you show it to. You can decide who can see it, who can edit it if you want people to be able to get rid of them or modify them in some way. And then you can put tags. So this one I could say like clues. And all of our clues handouts could get filtered by the tag. I usually just drop files in. So you can pick a file, drop it in, like let's say, okay, this is a handout that for some reason is a YouTube thumbnail. The assassin gets his contract by way of a YouTube thumbnail, and you can drop that in. Then when people see it over here, they'll be able to click it and view it from there. You can see our little bar going as it uploads my YouTube thumbnail. Oh, there it is, episode 7.1. And we can put in our notes. Do this later, it's nothing. So everyone can see that description. And then only the GM can see that one. And then again, you can archive or delete the handout down here. So by default, they can't see them. You have to make them visible by putting them in their journal. And then it'll appear over here. And so when it appears, this is what they look like. So notes for everybody, notes for me. I can click it, and it'll pop it up. And then we can edit it again. So let's delete this handout. There we go. But I think it wants me to do that again. So put in the handout. And then you can go back and re-edit it. All right, journal. I got ahead of you. I'm real sorry. This tutorial doesn't like me going off on my own path. I'm sorry. I know. All right. So click add and select handout to continue, which we did. And we're good to go. So we can add in our handouts here. Cool. Okay. You can also add characters by, again, just clicking character. And depending on the game you're playing, it will give you, you'll always get this screen. This is always a blank screen. You can put in an avatar. The avatar is able to be dragged in as a token. You can you can select a default token. So there's a tabletop token here. You can click it and make that the default for that person. They can be different from the avatar. You can give them a name. You can set whose journal they belong to. And you can tag them just like you can with characters. So like, let's see, hench person. So these are all my hench people, and they're all going to have that tag, and so we can find them. Same thing, bio and info. This is where you can put your long-winded character background story full of angst and hard times, but also love and triumph. And then everyone will be able to see that for your character. The GM notes can be here. I don't care about that. This dude is toast. And I can put that in. And you can make notes about players. No. Make notes about characters. I mean, you can make notes about your players, but do that elsewhere where they can't see them. This place is only visible to you. This is the bio that they have for their character. And once they've saved the character, this is what it looks like. And if you're using a built-in character sheet, you can click the character sheet option here, and it'll take you to the options for that sheet. By default, also, you can see attributes here. This is for when we get to macros. You can add in additional attributes. So my strength is a current 20 out of 5,000. And so later when I'm like, roll 1d strength, it'll roll a d20 for me. These are the kinds of things that you can add to the character here. Now these will be filled if you're using a character sheet. The attributes and abilities will have tons of options built into them. And those are all put into a graphical user interface in the character sheet tab. If you click show to players, the current screen you're looking at will get displayed to all of the players so they can see it. So you can be like, let's all take a look at Upris's character sheet here. Boop. And it'll show them the things that are visible to them from that sheet. If you want to organize these better, which I always do, you can add folders. And you can click the little triple score here to drag someone into a folder. You can add subfolders by right-clicking and saying Add Subfolder, which creates a subfolder here. And then again, you can drag into the subfolder. This is how my game has, in OSA, has characters, deadites, and henchmen, and I nest everybody in there. Folders are awesome. I love them. I'm a big folder nerd. I like organizing stuff. Really, I should move this folder into characters because I'm a bad GM, but whatever. So you can do that with handouts, characters, anything you can add new folders to. If you right-click on these, it'll allow you to sort. So you can sort A to Z. If you're not from America, that's A to Z. And then add additional things directly. Handouts, characters, rename, or delete folders. If you delete the folder, it'll just bump the character out and put them on the default level, and you can move them into wherever you think they belong. Cool. So that's our journal. The journal obviously becomes very important. Everybody's journal, think about this. So think about it this way. Everybody's journal is a 3-ring binder. Sometimes the GM gives you a piece of paper individually on your own and says, this is your character. There are others like it, but this one is yours. It's only visible in your folder, in your binder, your journal, however you've got it organized. The GM basically has a single giant quantum journal that contains everyone else's journals. So that's why when we say visible in so-and-so's journal, that means my version of the character as a GM is also copied and visible. The quantum version of that character sheet exists in your journal as well. So multiple people can have the character, but when you edit one, you're editing all of them. Think about it like a shared file in Dropbox. So that's all available just through the Journals tab, which is up at the top. Now, if you want to get all fancy pants and multimedia, you can use the jukebox. I'm going to turn on sound for the jukebox. Are we ready? Let me put my headphones on. So the jukebox, oh god, now I can't hear myself talk. The jukebox allows you to add background music, sound effects, and other stuff. We plug right into SoundCloud for that. And you can click the add button to start looking through what we've got. So you can click track to add a sound. Let's look for annoying water droplets. So this will give us everything with the word water in the title. Water Damage by Steven Universe. So this stuff is all available doing the search there. And you can search for background music, sound effects, or all music. To preview a track, you can press the play button to hear it. I don't want to play any of these because I don't know copyright stuff. I don't want to get our VOD muted. Again, if you're streaming games, and I hope you are, most of the time the tabletop audio stuff, not such a big deal. It's licensed to be used this way, but songs specifically might buy you a timeout sound-wise on Twitch. So keep that in mind. So yeah, to preview tracks, you can press the play button. Plus, to add to a playlist, we'll just add a track, and it'll appear in our jukebox. Now, Tabletop Audio has a bunch of preloaded, authorized stuff that you can play during your session. This is the stuff I like. So, Tabletop Audio, let's look at, okay, click the track name. Oh, you can change the track names. So, Big Boss Fight Song. In case you don't remember that We Are Water by Papa Dozio is the music for your big boss fight. Whoa, good typing hands, Adam. And I'll rename it. All the players will hear it when you hit play. You can adjust the volume here to fade it in and out, and you can loop it by clicking there. Playlists act like journal, so you can folder them and start to do things like that. So let's make a playlist. We can say Townsburg. So this is my Townsburg playlist. I'm going to put the big boss fight in it because the big boss is the mayor of Townsburg. But let's also add some tracks. Let's look for some fantasy stuff. Some sound effects. Yeah, I'm going to fight him in a fountain. Water cave sound effect. Ready? Here. Oh yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I like that. It sounds like we're going to fight the big boss in a shower. Alright, so we're going to put this in. I'm going to throw it in here. Get in there, you. Yeah, I had it right the first time. And then I can change the name, so Shower Boss Battle SFX. Cool. So we can play more than one of these at a time, too. So I can play the big boss fight music and the dripping water from this particular sound effect, and we can loop it. Yeah, so in Townsburg, you gotta go. You go fight the boss battle, and then the Tabletop Audio works the same way. You can search through the jukebox and find all kinds of cool tracks. Just be careful. This is a Adam GM, not a technical tip. Don't loop the same song over and over forever. Like if it's gonna take. Tabletop role-playing game combat often takes longer than video game combat, so yeah, it's tricky. Just don't loop the same thing forever. It'll make people crazy. Yeah, so just keep that in mind as you make your. This is my tip as a GM to you. Yeah, so it'll show you what's currently playing. It'll rotate through the track list. How you've ordered it, so you have your little mixtape here, and you can do all kinds of stuff using that. If you are the kind of GM that likes using music and audio, I find it very hit and miss myself, but it really depends on the game. Some games really get help from having audio. It's nice to be able to play specific songs. I mean, if you're playing a game like Ribbon Drive, you practically need a tool like this to be able to play it. So useful stuff if you like it for your game. Let's take a look at turn tracking. So the turn tracker, if you've played a game with initiative, this is a clear and obvious one. So if you click turn tracker, you can see over here, it creates an interactive list. Visible, once you turn it on, it's visible to everybody. And players will only see tokens that have been given turns on this page. As the GM, you see all tokens for all pages. So we're gonna pop it open. And we're gonna, hey, there's my little token guy. Let's give him a token. Or a turn. We're gonna right-click him. We're gonna go Add Turn, and there it is. So he appears on there. Now the turn will be listed by the character's name. So if you want to make sure they have a name, you got to put one in. So Elf Lord here, we're gonna make sure he gets a turn. Elf Lord McGloop. Now when we go to Add Turn for him, there's his name in the list. So Elf Lord's got his name. You can add multiple turns per token if you want, for some reason, if you need to. So Elf Lord McGloop goes on a 15, and then he goes again on a 12. He's super fast. Let's give him another one. There you go, and then he goes again on 5. Clicking it will turn it into a related value. So you can also drag a result from text chat. This is cool, so watch. I almost never remember to do this, but let's say, oh, I got a 6. Okay, McGloop, Boop. Now he's got a 6. Your character sheet might have a built-in, initiative roller, which is cool. But if it doesn't, you can drag from your results. So, and yeah, macros. When we get to macros, you can make macros to auto do this for you, as well. There you go. They're auto. You can learn about how to make macros from the macros wiki. I still use that wiki pretty much every time I'm prepping for a game. So go check it out. All the wikis are full of really useful stuff. To advance a turn, you just click the arrow, and it'll move on to whoever's next. It shuffles everybody up. It's kind of hard to tell because these are quite similar, but watch. Now the 2 is next. So it'll just move it up. And if you're playing a game where it rotates through and you don't re-roll, you can just keep clicking this. If somebody gets a modification to theirs, you can put them in, and then you can sort, and it'll bump them down. Sorting is also useful to start a turn, right there. You can also add custom items, like on initiative tracker 1, everyone dies in a fire. So the Magloop is the only one here, but they'll die. You can also put in a round calculation for that if you wanted to count down to something. And then you can also just clear items independently from the order as you go. So let's get back in the turn tracker here. Give Magloop a turn in the order. I'll give Magloop his 6 that I rolled. And then there we go. Yeah, to advance the turn, give it a click. Click it to open the options. This can be sorted alphabetically. You can sort by card or suit if you're playing with Savage Worlds. And then custom items like I showed you. Then give a round calculation that modifies their value every time they reach the top of the tracker. So I guess if I wanted the players to have seen the approaching orc horde, I could say orc horde and round calculation 1. And then I'd be able to place it in, and when it reaches the top, the calculation goes down every time. Yeah, +1 would give a round counter till the round is over. This can be useful for tracking spell time as well. So if, for example, Magloop, we add Magloop in, Magloop goes on a 15, Magloop casts a spell like, I don't know, Magloop's Magic Marble Mouth, and a round calculation of +5. We can add it in, and then every time it rotates up, then it'll count down. So 5, 10, or it'll count up or count down. So this is how tough. Maybe Magloop gets 15 magic marbles that he can spit at his enemies. Now he has 20. He gets 5 more every turn, and then you can adjust it. So you'd say, okay, you use 10 this turn, but next turn you get 5 more. You can also put in countdowns like -5. So we can say, you know, you get leprosy, and the leprosy is a penalty that you get every round. And you can see now my leprosy is at -20, but I've got 30 magic marbles that I can spit at my enemies. And clear the list. Turn tracker. Useful for games that use initiative. Totally useless for games that don't. But that's okay. You're only going to use the tools you need. Yeah, and you obviously cast that with your strength. Cool, okay. So let's look at decks and tables. So decks and tables give you the option to randomly draw stuff. Some games like Mouse Guard use custom cards. Some games like what's a game with it's the Wild West with the hucksters? Deadlands? I want to say Deadlands. Deadlands use cards to make poker hands. You can show a deck. You'll have your regular deck up here by default. So we can click show, right? And that'll bring in the deck. So here's my deck. I can click the shuffle button. I can hover over it to get my context menu. So let's deal 5 cards to me. Oh, here are my 5 cards. I've got something. I've got a royal, a pair of 3s, I guess. A bummer hand. So you can deal cards from the deck. Those cards will be removed from the deck. You can also drop cards onto a character or a player to deal to them. So you can say like deal onto that player. If you right click a card, you get its context menu, so you can flip them over. Right? Or you can put the card into your hand. So it goes back into my hand. Or I can use it to track my initiative. So I can do that here. If you want to mess around with the deck itself, you click on the name up here, and that will allow you to change it. So basic deck, can the player see it? Can the player draw cards? Does it have an infinite number of every card? Is it dealt hands up or hands down? Can I pull a specific card from it? Is there a discard pile? If so, what do we see? Basically, anything you'd want to do to customize a deck of cards, you can do that here. And if you want to, you can add your own deck of cards, like I did with Mouse Guard, just by clicking Add up here. And that'll allow you to give custom art to the front or back. It'll allow you to pull on purpose or pull randomly. All of those things come from the deck section, basically. And you can customize these however you like and hide or show them as needed. This is also where we have rollable tables. So there's no default table, but we've got one to work with here. You can create them a weighted list or randomly generate tokens from it. This is for creating randomly choosing from a pool of monsters or tokens that have multiple images. This lets you roll on the table, so you just click it. You can see here, this is a rock, paper, scissors table. So we've got scissors. Let's see if we beat ourselves. You can also /R to roll from the table. So 2T example table. For an example of how this works, and there we go. So rock beats, or hand. Paper is what it's called. Paper beats rock. They're all hand, Adam. Yeah, watch the Mouse Guard episode, and you can see that. That's how I did the cards, and then watch OSA for tables because I have a random encounter table. If you click the token button, it generates a token, and you can put it on the table there. You can also use the multi-sided option to generate which, here we go, random side, or choose which side you want to pull from. Yeah. So rollable tables, they're basically like creating custom dice, and then you use those to roll. You can add new tables just by clicking Add on the table option here, and then edit that table by adding items. So a goblin, 10 goblins, and it's got a weight of 4. So there's a 1 in 4 chance you're only going to get 1 goblin on this table. Oh look, we got 10 goblins. Uh-oh, surprise, 10 goblins. I actually really like rollable tables, and I want to use them more in my games because I don't think that I implement them quite enough, even in OSA. That's also a very cruel rollable table I just created. Nearly lastly, we've got the Settings tab. Settings is where you control volume level. So if the GM is making you listen to that stupid tavern song again, you can just be like, yeah, no, shut up. I don't want to hear that song again. But it does also reduce your voice audio. So if you're using the internal audio, you are stuck with the GM's music. You'll just have to roll your diplomacy check to get them to turn it down. So master volume here, my settings allows you to change your avatar size, use the keyboard shortcuts. All these options are available to every player. You can adjust them on the My Settings tab and then read more about what they do within the wiki. Lastly, and this is where the real fun gets started if you're a real big nerd, like I would like to be, this is the best. This is the best part of it. So macros, you can get at them in the My Settings tab, and you can set up macros from there to do a bunch of different stuff. So up here, you can create macros that are visible to yourself, visible to all players. The players that create the macros can share them to other people. Macros need a name and an action, basically, a commonly rolled thing or some text. So, for example, I could say, let's see, attack with, no one call it sword attack. So in this game, I can add an emote. So attacks with my massive sword. I can add another line, and I can say roll d20 plus 5. And I can test my macro to see if I did it right. So there you go. So I roll d20 plus 5 versus AC. It's basically just a roll, but it does both of these together. I attack with my massive sword, and then it does the roll. Pretty straightforward. But you can keep adding in additional stuff. You can start adding in inline options, text, emotes. Each action is its own line. Again, you can test them like I showed you there. And then if you want to get really complex, you can start doing things like token actions or like initiative, or adding things in from the character option. And then you can multi-nest macros. So you could say, I want to do this macro and then do this macro, and you could fill one in with the other. So if you have double actions, you can roll 2 different things together, which is kind of cool by nesting them with the hash mark there, the octothorpe, if you will. To be a token action, this is going to create an option for this to be available whenever you have a token highlighted. So this would be the kind of thing like an initiative macro. So you could set it up that if it's a token action and someone clicks a token, it will show that that macro up here. So you can see it here. So I'm going to click Magloop, and I'm going to click Sword Attack, and now I know like this was a Magloop action, and it popped up only when I have a token selected. So depending on what it does, it might add to the initiative order, it might reduce or improve AC, it might make an attack, but basically it only shows up when you pull up a token. The other thing you can do is show it on your quick bar. So I'm gonna move my overlay and cam. Bye for now. You can show the macro quick bar, which appears down here, and you can go in bar to give it a sword attack. I use these in almost every game. If you want another GM trick, and this one's very much personal experience. Let me get my cam back up here so you can see how earnest I am. GM trick. Make macros for even in simple role-playing games like, I don't know, Stars Without Number, for example. Make macros for rules that your character or your players don't remember ever. So like, if you get sick of your players being like, wait, hold on, what do I add to my attack bonus again? You can create a macro that allows them to do that themselves. They'll click it, and the situation will prompt them. There'll be a little bar that'll say, what is your armor class? What is your attack bonus? What about, like, all those different things will pop up and walk them through it, and then hopefully they'll remember next time. But don't hold your breath. That's what I do. Like, commonly forgotten stuff, I just have the players prompt. So why don't we, I mean, obviously macros are awesome, and if you want to use them, definitely hit the wiki. There's lots of stuff. You can't figure out how to make a macro the way you want it to. The forums, awesome. I have used them myself and been like, I'm trying to make this happen. Dearest gods of the forums, who are much better at the math stuff, please go ahead and help me with that. So that concludes the tutorial in the basic sense. I want to show you real quick before I go a couple of my games. So I'm gonna just pop back over to the big webcam here, and I'll open up the back end and I'll show you how I use some of these things. So I'll pop open Old School Adventures. I'll pop open Swan Song, and we'll take a look at those too, because I think that they both have some useful stuff, and they don't use the API. So I can show you just some basic stuff for those games. Okay, cool. So let's take a look at Swan Song first of all. Now with Swan Song, you know, I use a basic map. I've made unit measurements the default just to track some distance stuff. So it's basically like 1 unit to the edge, and then units out. You know, I really only use for this one right now. I'm looking to complicate this map a little bit, but right now, oh, it's not showing. Boo, that's annoying. Hold on, let me fix that for you. There we go. Sorry, everybody. Okay, so I only really use the map for moving pieces around, moving where the swan song is at any given time. I've got a couple of other maps. I've got a in-game map that we use for some combats, and that's about it for mapping. But what I've done, and again, let me move the overlay here. What you can see down at the bottom, I've created a skill roll macro, I've created a to hit roll macro, and a short to hit macro, as well as an initiative roll. So these help the players, like when they're like, what do I roll for initiative again? I just say, put in your dexterity bonus. And it'll roll automatically for them. I can also add in, like I can roll for people, so like, you know, let's roll initiative for Prosper. And it'll show that Prosper rolled that. What I do in this particular, I'll show you those macros. Let's take a quick look. So the like the skill roll macro looks for, it rolls 2d6 plus prompts for a question defaulting to skill -1 plus something else that prompts to ability modifier defaulting to 0. So that's how that works. Also, yeah, Piani is always in this chat, just never logged out, which is, you know, great. I'm into it. I also have a random table in this one called Space Mishaps, that if we look at it, Space Mishaps shows what happens if Higgs screws up navigation roll. Oh, catastrophic dimensional energy incursion. Good thing Higgs didn't actually roll that. Whew, intense. Cool. Okay. So that's one. Let me pop myself back in here, and we'll grab you the other window so you can take a look at the token stuff that I do for OSA. Now, OSA, again, all right, I know that one of our mods is watching this and is a player. Dave, if you can hear me, Dave, look away. Don't look, man. I'll tell you when it's safe to look, okay? All right. So here we go. Dave, look away. Let's see, Old School Adventures. I'm giving you lots of time to flee. Don't worry. There we go. Okay. All right, so in Old School Adventures, this is how we do the map. So map on the GM layer, player token on the player level, and then drawings on the map level. So you can see the players or myself have been drawing in the map. So there's our map. Some caves, some chaos. And then what we do for the encounter map, I'll leave them here. What we do for the encounter map is I just draw it out using lines, and we place tokens on the map. Oh, rip. Rip orcs. So many rips. Okay, so, and then you can see here, like, these orcs are on the GM info layer, and then I right-click and I drag them up to the token layer so the players can see them, and I can have them attack the players individually and move them around as necessary. I keep their hit points and their AC tracked up here, and we do everything that way. It's pretty straightforward. These games all use a few macros. You can see them down in the bottom here, but you know, not a ton, because they have character sheets, and we're starting to use the character sheet for Stars Without Number a lot more. Now that the players are starting to get more comfortable with Roll20, and they're kind of seeing where they don't have to remember things quite as much as maybe they otherwise would if the players' sheets are helping them do that work. So I wanted to take a couple of minutes. I think we're right on schedule. Take a couple of minutes to talk about questions that you might have. Now, I won't be able to answer every question necessarily, because while I'm pretty practiced at using... Oh, Dave, you can come back now. Sorry, buddy. I'm pretty practiced at using Roll20 for a specific thing. There's probably lots of games that do different things that I have no idea how to use them for. So let's talk a little bit about that. If you have specific questions, just throw them in chat. Otherwise, if you're watching this not live, you can @ me on Twitter, or I would definitely suggest going and checking out the forums. They have all kinds of cool things, cool options for you. Macros, pre-built macros, that kind of thing. Okay, so the Dell, movement with spacebar is the way to show multiple movements. No, it only shows you the last move. So you do have to remember, like you couldn't go point A to B to C to D all as one move. You'd have to go A to B as a move, then move it again with spacebar, and then move it each time. So I don't think that there's a way to path it out like that. Yeah, that would be my thought on that. Matt Adrick, the character sheets. I know there's some really beautiful, really beautiful character sheets out there. Oh, really? There is. Okay, how does this work? Because I've tried it before and I couldn't make it work. Dave says there's a way to do the tracking in multiple steps. Let me test that. Okay, spacebar, move to there. No, I can't. See, it still doesn't work the way I thought it was. Maybe I'm pressing spacebar at the wrong time. Anyway, the forums might have a better answer than I did, evidently. Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I couldn't make it work, but there might be a way. What else? Oh, for sheets. Sorry. Yeah, to do the thing with the sheets, it's basically just a combination of programming all the macros to tell the sheet what to do, and then CSS and HTML to style them. They're all web objects. Yeah. Can the measurement tool be hidden? So seen by players, or seen by the GM, but not by players? I don't think so. I've never been on both sides, but we can try this next time. I think the only way I could think of doing it is if you're on the GM layer, hold left click, move it, and hit spacebar at each point. Okay. Oh, okay, cool. So you hold left click and move the... okay. Thank you. To answer your question about the movement, I think if you move on the GM layer, that's how you do it. Cool, well look at that. I learned something today. If you want to have multiple clicks in a path, that's how you do it. Cool, hold shift, hit space, each time it stops. That's what I was doing wrong. Brilliant. Greg and Tony asked me over in my channel, can you use rollable tables to create dice for FFG Star Wars? Yes. Yeah, totally. Not 3D dice, but definitely the like rollable dice. Yeah, there's an API script if you have the like fuller, like a premier version of the game, premium version of Roll20, but yeah, not, but you can still do it with a rollable table. You just would have to make macros for your players right into the character sheet. Golden WH asks, is there a way to show token labels for tokens on the map layer? No, because they're not tokens, technically. If it's on the map layer, it's an object, but it's not a token. That's my thought. Fake Alex Blue has a good question that I think is interesting. Is keeping the fiction first while using the Roll20 mechanical toolset a matter of fluency? So I think the thing is that yeah, like fiction first is a thing that certain games use, but if you're playing a game that's not fiction first, like Dungeons and Dragons, it's the mechanisms define the fiction, and then the fiction is a justification for the mechanisms. You know, play it that way. This is going to be my ultimate advice for anybody who's GMing. Play the game as it's written. Use the tools as they help, don't as they don't. And this is why we did Apocalypse World and Basic D&D kind of in a similar time period, because I wanted you to be able to see them both. Yeah, that's my thought. Let's see. If you move a token to the map layer, like a dead body, can you remove the token from the map layer easily if they move the dead body? Yeah, all you have to do is jump to the map layer and then kick it out. Or move it around, right? Because the GM, you have the ability to shift between layers really easily. There's like even keyboard shortcuts for it. So you can shift layers. So you put a body, they grab the body and drag it. You can jump over to the map layer, drag it for them, jump back, done. No problem. They behave like tokens everywhere else. They just don't have the token interface, the little pop-ups that a token would normally have. Cool. All right. Well, it looks like that's all the kind of urgent questions we have for today. But again, as always, hit me up on Twitter if you have questions. If you want real, like, supreme expert advice, go to our forums. The devs are there. If you want to get into any of the deeper stuff, like the API, any of the premium features, definitely hit that up as well. You'll be able to see some of those. Check out the wiki. All kinds of practical information there. And yeah, that's the tutorial. You know, even I picked up a couple of new tricks. So if you are old hat at Roll20, hopefully this helped you figure out a thing or two, like it did me. And I hope that if you're not already playing a game in Roll20, that you will check it out, because it's fun. It's cool. We can do neat new things with role-playing games we couldn't do before. So check it out, sign up for an account, and also, because we announced this today, if you're watching this on YouTube, it might be old news. We announced this today. We are hiring for a couple of positions at Roll20. So if you're a developer, we're looking for a developer, and we're looking for a brand manager. So pop over to our website, roll20.net. Check that out. If you think that you would like to join me and the other cool people on the team, I think that'd be sweet. So go check that out. Otherwise, thank you for coming, and I hope that you have a fantastic day. This has been pretty fun. I'm excited to play more role-playing games. Bye, everybody. See you next time.